Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Our co-host today, Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How you doing?
Did you swim today?
Yeah, we almost needed a boat to get to work today.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Finally, I forgot what that stuff was that came out of the sky.
You know, we've been short water and complaining, when are we going to get rain? Well, we've had enough. Let's turn it off.
Yeah, let's turn it off.
We don't want flooded here. So, okay, well, we have some things, and we have a flood of activity going on. Who's going to be the speaker in a month from here now?
Yeah,
That's the question. And I guess there'll be some people betting money on this. And somebody's going to make money some way. So will McCarthy be speaker? Or are they, and it looks like as we speak, they're getting awfully close to maybe have a key vote in the House to decide whether or not he's going to be kept as the speaker. But the problem is getting another substitute is a problem. But certainly there's, you know, when you have something like this, which is so much of a mess because of finances and big problems and war, but it's narrowed down to pure politics. You know, who can win the political fight, and this is very difficult to promise, and that's what they're working out, because if they have this vote, who's it really going to help? They throw out McCarthy, are they going to get Democratic votes? Can they throw them out without Democratic votes? If there are Democrats voting, what are they going to get for it? The whole thing. So it's sort of a messy thing. But I suppose that it won't solve the problem of the budget. They talk about the budget because they say, well, the way this is going, there will be another continuing resolution. Well, I think at the very beginning of the fiscal year, they will be. There always is. They always have to. Matter of fact, they're in one right now, temporary budgeting. But at the end, they'll finally have to come through and vote on something, and there'll be a lot of demagoguing and a lot of people maneuvering, but the debate is getting pretty vicious, because when you look at all the court things going on in the politics with Trump and everybody else, that it's a real ugly struggle. And it wasn't overly pleasant, but I had a refuge when I was there. I went out for the baseball team. And the interesting thing about that is the baseball players, Republican, Democrat, they were friends. More so than if you were trying to get together on the House floor. But anyway, there could be a vote today. We may hear some big news about what's happening. But the one prediction I make, it will not go smoothly.
Well, it may be a big vote today. Everyone was telling Gaetz, hey, you put up or shut up. You keep complaining about McCarthy. Why don't you go ahead and put in those papers? Well, he did it, and McCarthy said, oh yeah, okay, well, let's do a vote right away. It's a privileged resolution, which means you have 3 days to bring it to the floor without some maneuvers that are possible. So McCarthy brought it up right away. I just want to say one thing, though, Dr. Paul, as the rain gets louder. There's so much discord. Will the Democrats rally to back McCarthy, and that'll weaken him further? Will they abandon him? Because McCarthy only can afford to lose, I think, 4 or 5 votes on the Republicans if the Democrats don't back him. So whatever you have, you're going to have a mess, like you said. I have a proposal. Maybe our viewers don't know this, Dr. Paul. We haven't practiced this, but you do not have to be a member of the House of Representatives to be the Speaker of the House. Now, I happen to know someone close in my proximity that could preside over the House, who's not identified with Republicans or Democrats necessarily, who would be a fair and even person. And I bet you could make a deal where you could sit right here with your gavel and you wouldn't have to travel. So
I don't know. I thought we were friends. Because
you could do it from here, though.
Well, there's sort of an advantage to that.
It might be fun. But well, let's put up the. I'm not even half joking. But let's put up. This is from I don't know, Politico maybe. Buckle up, McCarthy to call up vote that could oust him Tuesday afternoon. Go to the next one. Let's go through a couple real quick, because he says, the article says, 4 GOP members have publicly committed to voting to boot McCarthy, while a handful of others say they're leaning that way. Given the House GOP slim margins, McCarthy can only afford to lose 5 if the Democrats all vote against him. Now, McCarthy has said, I have not talked to Dems. I have not asked them to vote to keep me in the House. I'm not going to ask them to do that. So it's really kind of an edge of the seat kind of thing. But I'll just say one other thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who we admire in many ways, is not a huge ally of Gaetz. They ally at times, and they're very friendly. But put that next one up. I think she has a pretty good point in this, and this may sway some of those votes. I don't know what you think, Dr. Paul, but MTG says this: there was an admission by Matt Gaetz, who's my friend, that there's no plan. There's no one to step forward to run. There's no one that's coming out saying, I'll be speaker, and rallying support within the conference. That's a pretty tough, maybe damning thing for her to say.
Yeah, and that's a fact. Because if you want somebody that is hardcore and won't give an inch in order for the process to continue, Gaetz is the person.
Yeah.
But you know that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't work. So if you go and put the rest together, then if you get somebody that's sort of going to satisfy both sides, you got to have somebody out there wheeling and dealing. But we do have to admit this wheeling and dealing. It's always ugly, but it got a little bit ugly when they started talking behind the scenes. Oh yeah, we'll take the money out of the resolution.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you get. But I think that goes on all the time.
Yeah.
You know, there were times when I saw things done, and there was something very, very controversial, and all of a sudden somebody would move to strike that, and it was a big deal, and it would be struck with no effort, no kind of anything. It was done, and so that settled it. The whispering was, we'll put it back in the conference.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry.
Boy, when I learned about the conference, that's one thing that many people don't understand how powerful it is. The Rules Committee is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
If you get a bill that's controversial and goes to the Rules Committee, they can strike everything in a bill and put another bill in and bring it to the floor, and they get by. And then the conference, it was amazing how many things they did. The Monetary Control Act was the big one that I worked on, because it went to conference and it was atrocious. But the really bad stuff was put in at the conference after they spent months in the committee and on the floor and debated it. And we're doing our due diligence and we're being very cautious. At the same time, it's stuck in at the end. So the system is not very ethical.
And there's also, it's hard to find out if they snuck it back in, because there's no just one way of knowing what's in. It's kind of word of mouth. Hey, I heard he snuck it back in, you know.
Well, technically it could be there, but what if you have a bill this big?
Yeah,
you know,
hard
it goes
to find
to high
it.
floor. No, they would have to have it in there. But it's real easy, because after about a month of this going back and forth, and they bring it up before that Friday afternoon when everybody's ready to go home. Okay, yeah, we voted on this. I supported this bill. And they don't ask the question, you know, about what they really were up to.
What they put in the
There was some real mischief put in on the conference bills when I was there.
A lot of power. Well, let's look. Here's Matt Gaetz's beef. Now, he's had a lot of beefs with McCarthy. He held up McCarthy as speaker. I think they had to do 12 votes before he finally got in. So he's got a beef with him. But here's the latest thing. He tweeted this out, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. He says, wow, Speaker McCarthy made a side deal with Democrats and didn't tell House Republicans until after his continuing resolution passed. And what he's referring to is a statement tweeted by the House Democratic leadership saying, when the House returns, we expect Speaker McCarthy to advance a bill to the House floor for an up or down vote that supports Ukraine, consistent with his commitment to making sure that Vladimir Putin, Russia, and authoritarianism are defeated, et cetera, et cetera. So Gaetz is claiming that McCarthy made a secret deal. The Democrats are not dissuading anyone of that view that he made a secret deal. Hey, I'll take the money out now, but I'll put it back in on a standalone vote. McCarthy's denied this, but I think this is the origin, at least now, with some of the problems of wanting to get rid of him.
See, all this activity would be a worthwhile debate to go on if people was honing in on the fact that maybe we ought to talk about how do we get into these pickles over Ukraine.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we shouldn't be there. Is it legal for us to be there? What part of the Constitution justifies picking up and going and then hiding the money that's in there and playing all these tricks and then the tricks going on with Zelensky and the military-industrial complex? They're talking now. They're over there ready to, once things calm down, like the military-industrial complex is already setting up shop.
Oh yeah.
Right there, they want to build closer to the enemy's lines. This sort of thing. So it's a terrible situation, and it inevitably does two things. It bankrupts the country, and the country goes, the country becomes a moral mess because everybody's cheating and stealing in order to try to better their own selves.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Well, let's skip ahead because now I admit I even tweeted something in favor because I kind of like the idea of stirring things up, and I kind of liked what Gaetz was doing, and I like the fact that he's not afraid to speak out of turn in a way. But I have to say, Thomas Massie, who's on our board, I view him like E.F. Hutton. When he speaks, I listen. And here's what he had to say about the whole thing. If you skip the Gaetz tweet and just go straight to Massie's double tweet. Here we are. So here's what Thomas Massie said. From my perspective, the House has been functioning better, more transparently, and more conservatively with Speaker McCarthy than it did with Speaker Boehner or Speaker Ryan. We have issues, but replacing McCarthy won't magically fix them. In fact, it could get worse. He tweets again, some are asking how it could get worse. Here's one bad scenario. In the new speaker election, a candidate wins not by getting 218 Republican votes, but instead by getting some Democrat votes in exchange for letting their bad bills come to the floor or otherwise sharing power. That is a very good point. And if just skip ahead to the next one, I just want to tell you the other point that he made. This is a piece in the Washington Times where he talks about it. Go to the next one where he makes another good argument, I have to say. He said creating a Republican vacancy in the Republican-controlled House, well, Senate Majority Leader Schumer and Senate Minority Leader McConnell lead the Senate, seems like a recipe for an omnibus. And I think he makes a good point. And by saying that, he undercuts Gaetz, which one of the reasons Gaetz is mad is because McCarthy hasn't brought single-issue bills to the floor. So I think what Massie is saying, ironically, if Gaetz is successful, there's more of a chance of an omnibus than if he's not.
Yeah, and there's no easy answer to that at all. And they're going to be lining up, so it'll be fascinating. But a lot of people just love this type, and it does get entertaining for the brief moment. But it's so serious because to me, I think it's the seriousness of the whole idea of having a reserve currency as a fiat currency, and we're $33 trillion in debt, and we perpetuate war and empire, and they're talking about this stuff. So the large majority of Republicans and Democrats, are on the wrong side of what we should be doing with a foreign policy.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons we have this organization, remember?
That's right. That's right. No, you're right. I mean, I was caught in the moment as well, and it's easy to get excited by it. But, I did have when I read what Massie had to say, I had a realization. And one of them is very important, which is that it really is hard to understand the Hill when you're not there. You spent a lot of time there. I spent less, but still a lot. And it's a very difficult place. And when you're not there, you just don't know, because so much of it is word of mouth. So much of it is rumor. So much of it is your contacts. You can't read Politico and have a sense really of what's going on the Hill.
That's right. So maybe we'll see something happening later today or tomorrow, I'm sure. But we'll keep watching. It'll be difficult to avoid hearing about it.
Well, speaking of hearings, there's another hearing, if you're ready to move on, which is former President Trump. And Bloomberg had a write-up because he was in court yesterday. If we can put that next clip up. This is Bloomberg came out with a headline, New York City court gives Trump a venue to air grievances over trial. And you had a good look at this piece. He sat for a few hours, didn't he?
I think it was like 6 or 8.
Yeah,
and,
amazing.
if the enemy was speaking, he stared at them like he was staring them down. But as soon as there was somebody more friendly, and he had one attorney, a woman attorney who evidently did a fantastic job, in defending Trump. But it looks like Trump has absolutely destroyed them in being able to get his message out. And fortunately, at least he can do that. But the people there were really, really impressed with this one attorney. But this argument is just sort of crazy of what they're doing. And his crime is that he overestimated his wealth and got all these false loans. So there he committed fraud.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about the details of it, but I know how there are other ways of dealing with people who sort of boost up their sheet of paper that tells them how much they're worth, and the people might do that to get the credibility. Well, how would we do that if we didn't have all this politics watching everybody what they do? Maybe the market could handle this, but estimating wealth. He has all these buildings. I mean, how many people, if you gave this out to realtors of all persuasions and you do it, I bet you'd get a wide swing just because, well, I don't know what this is worth. So, but anyway, this is fraud, and they're going to, try to put him in jail for this. And I think it's a subjective matter on deciding how much there is. And he is. He's bound and determined to stick to his guns, and so far he's been doing pretty well. And I think that we'll hear about this soon, about how it's going to work out. But there's 4 of his cases that have been delayed until after the election. So this is a big political deal. Yeah. And we'll see.
Well, I have to say, I've looked on Zillow, and I look at that range of numbers of what my house is worth. I always like to think it's at the higher end, but as you say, you never know. It's a wide range. But as we were saying earlier, he used those 6 hours there almost as kind of a campaign stop in a way. I mean,
yeah, but we complain all the time about who's controlling the propaganda. And we talk about the social media and the government and all the regular media and all the social media. And complaining about it, but of course he's doing something about it, and he's getting some assistance, and he's getting his message out. And no matter he's sort of flipped it. How many times has he been charged with a vicious crime that if you were running for dog catcher and you were ever accused of just one of his crimes, he'd be out the door in no time. But he has it now that he sort of when's the next fun thing? Because he has that, because they've overkilled. If you want to talk about I shouldn't tell them. They might listen to me and change their way. But it was overkill for them. People know that that Trump has his faults, but he's a fighter, and he has to fight with these people. So they give him a pass on some of these things. But I don't think he's. I think he's defending himself most of the time that he's on the right side. But that is just amazing how much he had that TV program. I think he trained himself in there
he did.
how to handle that. So he really controls it, and that's one thing about saying maybe the individual. And I always argue, why are we doing such a bad job promoting our programs? And the enemy has control of the media. But Trump sometimes is very much alone. But he can have an influence, and it's sort of he's motivated by survival. Because if he just sits around and doesn't give his side of the story, and the more they do, the more popular he gets. His numbers, they don't even talk about a real contest with the Republican primary.
I watched a short video. I think it was on X, former Twitter, of Trump signing someone's big John Deere tractor. and he was surrounded by like farmers, these guys, working people, and he signed it with his usual signature. And I think someone in the caption said, people really don't understand how much he resonates with working people. And they were all joking with him. And even though he was in his suit, and there's a lot as a problem, but just objectively speaking, he was able to talk to them in a much different way than someone like Joe Biden.
Yeah, he has a gift there. And I think it's mixed up at times on what his beliefs are and where he's coming from, but he puts it together, and he has this ability to appeal to these people. And one is he was way up on Biden with the strikers.
Yeah.
He identified with the strikers. In a way, he blurted out the truth about it. What they're doing to them. And of course, the argument there, of course, is that the middle class and the poor workers suffer while the monetary system takes care of the big guy.
Yeah.
But also, just think of him and his personality and his character, which we don't know the details and can't even assume to make a judgment. But his image was certainly not that he would be the most popular person in the conservative movement and have rules change regarding abortion and turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story.
Well, here he is. He's, 90 felonies, whatever, all these charges. He's sitting all day in court. But I just clipped a couple of things just to demonstrate what you just said, actually, just to demonstrate what you just said. Put the next one up, because go back to, please. There, one more. Go back. Here we go. Trump increases lead in support after second GOP debate. He didn't even go to the debate. 63% of Republican primary voters support Trump for the GOP nomination, up from 58%. So he actually improved his standing by not going. And I'll hit that next one, because this just came out yesterday. Very important, because they talked, remember the talk of the town was the 14th Amendment for a few weeks. Well, John Solomon reports in Just the News, the Supreme Court rejects the long shot case to disqualify Trump from 2024 using that 14th Amendment that he was in an insurrection. So that's shot down. So as you say, over and over, he just keeps going.
Well, when he gets involved in these, he surprises you, his positions that you take, without questioning what his real beliefs are, and is he fibbing a bit and all this stuff. What he is able to do when he talks to these people, because it doesn't always come out consistent for every incident, but he comes across, and I'll bet you if you did a poll on who you would most likely believe if he told you something that he was going to do it, Donald Trump or Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll bet you if it was a secret vote and you didn't even identify yourself as a Democrat, you'd probably have 80% of the people say, well, how could you trust these people?
Yeah,
we do. We like it because we're Democrats and we have to win these fights, and that's just part of the territory. You have to play those kind of things. But I think it is amazing that he's been able to go into what was, a hostile territory, because some people realize you have to do that, and they'll switch their vote, or they'll get in the middle, and they'll be wishy-washy, and I think that that's why I've always argued that the coalitions shouldn't be, you give up your belief, I'll give up our belief, we move here and we'll work with this mush that we have. My argument is, you find somebody that believes in civil liberties over here on an incident, and you have somebody else on the other side, they come in together, and you give up nothing. The coalitions and working with people, you shouldn't have to give any of your beliefs, but you should be able to work with somebody and just say, oh, well, he doesn't agree with me on Medicare, so I don't want to talk to him. That sort of thing.
It's crazy.
And then there are some subjects that are overwhelmingly supported by the majority. I think peace is one, and I think when it comes to sound money, it's growing to be one of the issues people are learning and knowing about that.
Yeah, learning more about it. Well, the last thing I think we want to talk about today is a little bit of foreign news. And put that next one up, because Dave DeCamp once again did a good job of writing up this story. Leaked strategy shows U.S. views corruption in Ukraine as major threat. And as Dave, this is originally from Politico, but it's a State Department 22-page public version of an integrated country strategy for Ukraine that makes clear corruption is a major concern for the U.S. The strategy outlines long-term goals for U.S. policy in Ukraine with an emphasis on rooting out corruption. Now, one thought that I had after reading this, Dr. Paul, is there are very, very few accidental leaks. Leaks are on purpose. This makes me wonder, who is it at the State Department, and maybe how high does it go that these things are coming out? It's been known, it's been in the paper, and I have a few clips to show it. It's been widely discussed, but it keeps getting dusted under the rug. Now, all of a sudden, you see someone at the State Department leaking this document talking about Ukraine's corruption right at a time when the Biden administration, or at least some factions in the Biden administration, are probably trying to find a way out of this mess as we move into election season. So I'm just saying, I wonder what the intent is of leaking this.
Well, they must have a reason for doing it, and you have to be. What you said is a good cautionary suggestion. Be careful, when the leak, and every once in a while I'll see it, and then I want to discuss it and say, what are the odds of this being true, or is it an accident, or whatever? So it's always a propaganda move. But I still think the perceptions of who's doing it is very important because they don't look at the big picture of do they believe in a higher law, and or are they a nihilist and they don't believe there's everything that you can know about truth, this sort of thing. They just do it on one issue at a time, and they try to convince the people for the moment. Everything is for the moment. And who's going to be the speaker right now? Who's going to be speaker tomorrow? That's more fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, maybe they're looking for a way out. But we'll go to the next clip. This is from the same article because, let me see. Yeah, if we can go to that next one. Here we go. Ukraine has long been notorious for its corruption, but the U.S. has sought to downplay the issue as it has poured tens of billions of dollars in weapons and economic aid. And I highlighted that part because, Dr. Paul, unless my memory is going, at the very beginning, not only did we talk about the potential for corruption, but people like Senator Paul and people around him said, hey, this country has got a reputation for corruption. If you're going to send them some billions of dollars, can we at least send someone to take a look at it? And said, no, you love Putin. And now here we are, a year and a half or so later, and they said, well, gosh, they're awfully corrupt. We probably should have had someone looking at it.
But I see corruption in two categories. One is when we talk about the corruption in the Biden family. And I'm not going to get into which is true and which isn't, but the perception is, that is corruption, and they bribe and they transfer funds and all this activity. And most people would say, no, they shouldn't do that, and most people still agree on that. But I think the bigger thing is the corruption in the system, which is perfectly legal.
Yeah.
It's a legal plunder. You get the majority, and that's why the majority is so tough to deal with. A vote, if you get 51% of the vote to punish the minority and make the minority pay all the bills, that's why people are so foolish when they say you have to have pure democracy, get together and you get 51%, we'll do all this, and then they don't. They're the ones who have to, so many of the poor people who have to pay these bills are the ones who get drafted or pushed overseas and expose themselves, and then they suffer economically too. And somebody has to pay the bills. They pay the bills with inflation and all, and that is corruption. That is, and it's wicked because it's held in high esteem. They brag about it. You Republicans, you don't even want to have the welfare state. You don't even want people to steal from this group and give to the other. They think that that's a wonderful thing to do. That's how you have equity. Equity is very important too. Yeah,
exactly. Well, in the corruption thing, I just wanted to put a couple of things up because just to demonstrate that this is not something new. Now, this report is new. However, just a casual look through this past year, turn that next one up just to go through it really quick because this is from just last month. Zelensky replaces Ukraine's defense minister amid corruption probe. Now go back, this is the month prior to that. You have Ukraine's Zelensky fires draft officers after alleged corruption hobbles recruitment. Now go back and you'll see the next one. This is back a few months ago. Ukraine's anti-corruption purge is inevitable amid Western scrutiny. Now go back one more, and yet another scandal. Ukraine war, why Zelensky's corruption purge could be key to the outcome of the conflict. So over and almost every month, you see a corruption scandal coming out. And now it's like Casablanca. There's gambling going on in here. Are you surprised?
But you have to punish a few people, somebody you don't like or somebody overstepped their bounds. So they will arrest a few people, you know.
Yeah.
If
usual suspects.
Yeah. But some of those usual suspects are really just there for staging something. Oh yeah, we're really tough on crimes. Maybe a lot that could be what we're talking about could apply to our borders.
Yeah.
You know, because now we still have the people who are for all that stuff said the borders. What are you people talking about? The borders are closed. You just can't walk in. And they say it now. Are they out of their minds, or are they? It's so hard to believe that people can be so disoriented as to talk like, there's nothing wrong with this. Of course, depends on what your goals are. If your goal is for world cultural Marxism and all this nonsense in world government, you do want to tear down the walls like this and destroy private property. Look at the damage being done from all this immigration nonsense. A lot of damage and a lot of undermining and a lot of undermining of personal freedom.
Yeah.
And I think people probably get to the point where truth to them is the advancement of radical socialism.
Yeah. Well, that's Corinne Jean-Pierre, the spokesperson. She said, what are you talking about? The border's closed. It's not open borders. She's a real piece of work. I didn't think you could get worse than Jen Psaki, but she is. Well, I'm just going to close out with that last picture to remind everyone that Dr. Paul's new book is out, The Surreptitious Coup. Here he is signing some copies of the book. I have to say, we're offering a soft cover and a hardcover copy signed by Dr. Paul for a tax-deductible donation to the Ron Paul Institute. And I have to say, if I did a tally, Dr. Paul, those hardcovers are flying off the shelves like hotcakes. So we have a limited supply and a limited time, and everyone seems to be going for the hardcover option, which I think is the smartest idea. I will put a link in there to find out more about the book and how you can get one as a gift from the Ron Paul Institute for your continued support when we're done. And Dr. Paul, back over to you.
Very good. And I thank all our viewers for tuning in today. We can't exist without you. And the fact that a few comments that I made in a little booklet has an interest out there. It is helpful to us. We get a couple dollars, and we just had an interesting program today, and it was noisy when we started. We had a real downpour, which everybody was happy to see the rain, but it was noisy. And we keep talking about a whole lot that someday when the funds come in, we're going to have a real studio. But a lot of people say, don't worry about it. We're interested in the message. Well, we can always produce the message and do our best to seek out the truth and explain what's going on. But it still would be nice to have a place where you don't hear every raindrop. So that'll happen someday. But we deeply appreciate the support from all of you, and please stay with us and come back to the Liberty Report soon.